Hello and welcome to The Wire. I am Sumedha. After 20 days, journalist and fact checker at Alt News, Mohammed Zubair, will finally be able to walk free after he has been given an interim bail in all the 6 cases in Uttar Pradesh which were pending against him. The Supreme Court was hearing this entire case today, and finally, this has been announced, and this order came earlier in the afternoon. The Supreme Court has made important, pertinent points pertaining to the freedom of speech and expression and an individual's personal liberty. The entire case was argued by Advocate Vrinda Grover and her team throughout this month. And we spoke to her specifically to ask her about what this judgment means and the entire case as well. So, Vrinda, thank you so much for joining us, for speaking with us today and taking out the time to discuss this case. The first question that all of us want to know is what has the order said today and how significant it is, the fact that he stayed in jail for over 20 days and he's finally walking out free. But we need to understand the significance of this case and the significance of this judgment in the larger context, especially for journalists in India.
So right now, what we have from the Honorable Supreme Court is the operative part of the order. The judgment is not available yet, but we did hear what the court had to say. The bench, the 3-judge bench headed by Honorable Justice Chandrachud. In the operative part of the order, what the court has done is to ensure that his personal liberty is no longer jeopardized, which it was being done by reviving old cases or lodging new cases and then taking him round and round into different courts and jails. And there was an evergreening of the custody that was taking place, all of which were based on some tweets that he had done. It is my contention that those tweets do not make out any offense. What the court has done is to say, all right, if anything is to be investigated, let it be investigated in one place. You can't use the criminal procedure to harass and to incarcerate someone. And that is why a very pertinent and significant observation made by Justice Chandrachud that the power of arrest must be used sparingly. And this is a direct message, in a sense, to the state and the police as to how the exercise of power of arrest, which impinges on personal liberty, must be both rationally and legally deployed.
Yeah.
I think this case has ramifications not just for Mohammed Zubair, who, of course, whose personal liberty has been restored by the Supreme Court through today's order, but also it has ramifications for freedom of speech and for fact checkers and journalists. That simply because you are saying something that somebody may not like, not more than that. In a democracy as complex, plural, and diverse as India is, there will be things I hear every day, even on news actually nowadays, things that I don't like. That doesn't mean that I can take offense and ask for somebody to be arrested. It is about ensuring that free speech, exchange of ideas takes place without crossing the red line where it becomes an offense. But simply because Mohammed Zubair, as a fact checker, calls out perhaps influential persons, calls out perhaps powerful organizations, associations, does not mean that the state can then abuse its power to lodge a large number of cases against him. That is completely an abuse of the power of investigation, which the state is endowed for certain reasons, and those reasons being to protect our liberties and never to abridge our rights. And that is what the Supreme Court has said today. In fact, the Supreme Court reminded that his freedom of speech is not to be curtailed also, and that he is free to speak. Of course, if he falls foul of the law, he will face the consequences.
So quickly, one more question. Do you think that the process has then been a way of punishment for Zubair for being incarcerated for close to 20 days, over 20 days in multiple cases being taken across police stations across India? And would you say that this has to do with the fact that there was a certain agenda under which that he was being arrested, or would you say that there was a very strong message going out from his arrest to the other journalists as well?
I think in terms of what has he suffered? Again, to cite the Supreme Court in a different case, that 1 day's incarceration, which is illegal and unfair, is far too many days of incarceration. So here we see Zubair has actually suffered incarceration repeatedly in multiple cases, which were dormant earlier but were suddenly activated. What is the timeline in which it was activated is there for everyone to see and understand. I do think that what is at risk here is not just about Zubair, it is about all citizens. I don't think this is any longer about journalists or media. I think it is about citizens as a class, all of us in a democracy, that the chilling effect is taking place. It would be, it would be misleading for me to say that there is no chilling effect taking place. We know that journalists are at the receiving end of multiple criminal prosecutions, criminal arrests, because they may put out a story which may be inconvenient. And this is actually happening across states. All political parties, when in whichever state they are deploying and instrumentalizing the criminal legal machinery. And therefore, what this judgment is once again reminding the state that it cannot abuse the power it has. The power is given to the state for protection and promotion of our rights, not for suppression. And speech and protection of free speech is the foundation of democracy, particularly in a country like India. And I think at a time of digital media, social media, where misinformation, disinformation, false propaganda is rampant, fact checkers play a very crucial role. Unless the citizenry is informed accurately, the citizenry will form wrong opinions. And it may be a project to actually misguide citizens. It may be an agenda to mislead citizens. And therefore, calling it out is a fundamental duty of all citizens. And that's the role that Mohammad Zubair plays.
Yeah, and just one last question to you. If we were to give a message, if we were to understand one big takeaway from this case, what would that be?
I think the big takeaway is for the state, actually, for the police, for the law enforcement, that you cannot deploy the criminal legal machinery as an instrument of muzzling, silencing citizens, harassing and incarcerating citizens. Our rights are guaranteed. We have a right to speak as long as it does not fall foul of the law. It may be unpleasing to people who are in power, but in a democracy, citizens will speak out, say inconvenient things, even provocative things, as long as it is not inciting violence, inciting hatred, causing public disorder. There is absolutely no bar. And I think by ensuring this, we will make our democracy stronger.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.